To order. Meeting notice statement. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Berkeley Heights Board of Education was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. On June 4th, 2024, notice of the Board of Education meeting schedule was sent to the Star Ledger and the Courier News and was also provided to all schools, PTO presidents, the BHEA president, and posted at the administration building. A copy was also provided to the public library and filed with the municipal clerk. Please rise for the flag salute.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Secretary, roll call.
Ms. Akiri? Ms. Bradford?
Here.
Dr. Forager? Mr. Hyman?
Here.
Ms. Jolly?
Here.
Ms. Connor?
Here.
Ms. Stanley?
I just would like to explain a little bit about how we're going to order our meeting tonight. We're going to be meeting here in the GL cafeteria to open our meeting. We're then going to adjourn in a few minutes after we administer the oath of office to executive session. Then at around 7 o'clock, we are going to go have a brief recess to enjoy some festivities in the IMC library for our celebration tonight. Then we'll go into the GL auditorium, where at that point I will reopen the meeting to the public session and hand it over to Mr. Nixon, our acting superintendent. Okay. Mr. Juskowitz, administration of the oath of office.
At this point, you could just stand up. And what you're going to do is repeat after me. I, Kelly Huffnagel,
I, Kelly Huffnagel,
do solemnly swear
swear
or affirm
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New Jersey,
of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear
and that I will bear
true faith
true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the same
and to the governments
established
established
in the United States
in the United States
and this state
and this state
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people.
so help me God.
So help me God.
I, Kelly Huffnagel,
I, Kelly Huffnagel,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
that I
possess
possess
the qualifications
the qualifications
prescribed by law
prescribed by law
for the office
for the office
of a member
of a member
of a board of education,
of a Board of Education,
and that I am not disqualified
and that I am not disqualified
as a voter
as a voter
pursuant to
RS
RS 14:4-1. Oh, I'm sorry, 19, I'm sorry.
19-4-1.
I'm a little dyslexic right now.
No worries.
Nor disqualified
Nor disqualified
due to conviction
due to conviction
of a crime
of a crime
or offense
or offense
listed in
listed in
NJS
NJS
18A:
18A:12-1.
12-1. Got that one right. And that I will faithfully,
And that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly
and justly
perform all duties
perform all duties
of that office
of that office
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations
Thank you.
and best of luck.
I just want to also note during the report of the acting superintendent that Ms. Dipti Khanna will be working with Mr. Nixon to talk to the representatives of the Board of Education. And Mr. Jordan Hyman will be there for the recognition of Board Member Angela Penna. Ms. Natasha Jolly will be there for the Educator of the Year recognitions, and Mr. Tom Forager will be there for the recognition of district retirees. Thank you. Adjourn to executive session. Whereas the Berkeley Heights Board of Education seeks to adjourn to executive session in full compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6, Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act provides that a public body may exclude the public from the portion of the meeting at which it discusses matters related to those identified below. Matters rendered confidential by federal law, state law, or court law, individual privacy, collective bargaining agreements, purchase or lease of real property if public interest could be adversely affected, investment of public funds if public interest could be adversely affected, tactics or techniques utilized in protecting public safety and property, pending or anticipated litigation, attorney-client privilege, personnel, employment matters affecting specific, prospective, or current employees. Be it resolved that the Berkeley Heights Board of Education adjourns to executive session to discuss matters related to students, personnel, and attorney-client privileges. And be it further resolved that the minutes of the discussion of any of these items will be disclosed to the public when matters have been determined and confidentiality is no longer applicable. May I have a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Mrs. Khanna moved, seconded. Mrs. Jolly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. We will go to executive session.
I'm good.
Returning from recess. At this point, we're going to go to the report of the, nope, sorry. Yes, report of the acting superintendent. Continued.
Thank you very much. And for the last portion of the report of the acting superintendent tonight, I would like to welcome up Dr. Kelly Curtis and Alyssa Rush to present 6 through 12 from the 6 through 12 mathematics department with an update for the Board of Education.
Great, thank you very much. First, I just want to say what a privilege it is to be here tonight and to follow all of those amazing recognitions that we just saw. So I'm here to really first also thank Ms. Alyssa Rush, because we've been working very closely since day one on taking a look at the needs of all of our students in the area of mathematics. So to get started, the purpose of this presentation tonight is to really share out and address the feedback that we have gathered from all stakeholders since we've started this school year. We've talked to parents, students, teachers, PTO representatives, Board of Ed members, school administrators. We've reviewed state assessment reports. We've observed classrooms. And we've really taken a lot in. And some of the feedback I will share has been not easy to hear. And sharing that with you tonight also will not be easy to talk about. But I really believe it's important that that feedback is acknowledged, because that is what has formed our plan for moving forward. And our goal is to move forward in a very positive and supportive way for all of our students and teachers and the community. Okay, so there are some key themes that came out of all of this feedback. The first theme is really, the biggest theme is trust and the need to rebuild trust amongst all stakeholders in the community. Balancing technology and instructional delivery, working on collective teacher efficacy, and supporting students and promoting their well-being. So the first item is really the need to repair relationships in the mathematics department with the community. A lot of the feedback from everyone has had an expression of a loss of faith in the instructional program in mathematics since post-COVID, really, with the implementation of building thinking classrooms, specifically with really teachers expressing the need for training and stakeholders, students and parents expressing a need for consistency in implementation and also training. So part of that, I think, is really an ongoing theme across the board, which was one of our board goals, is that transparent communication. So using transparent communication also as a way of repairing those relationships. Jumping in here, sure. The next piece of feedback that we received from many areas was that since COVID, that pendulum in the instructional delivery has gone really to one side with a significant amount of dependence on digital technology. And specifically in math, an over-reliance of online resources, a lack of tangible resources, and the overuse of Delta Math. I know Ms. Rush can speak specifically to how some of those challenges apply to our special needs students.
Yes, and so finding this balance between the use of technology and instructional delivery with the over-reliance on one particular technology source or material, as we know, it doesn't always meet the range of learner needs that we have in the classroom. And sometimes they don't necessarily have the adaptability that some of our learners require with accommodations and modifications as per their IEPs. So that's why we are looking and discussing how to find the balance in utilizing some of these resources while also ensuring that students are getting the range of materials or resources that they require.
And then in addition to that, there's been a lot of feedback on balancing the amount of direct instruction provided in the classroom with the collaborative group inquiry strategies that have been really prominent with the building thinking classrooms. Okay. So with that, this is probably some of the most vocal feedback we received is this desire for consistency. Consistency amongst teachers, specifically in the classroom with grading policies, assessment policies, and then the process of providing constructive feedback to students so that students can use that feedback and take action on it in terms of learning from correcting errors that they might have, misconceptions that they might have prior to any high stakes assessments. And along with that, there's also been a lot of discussion with the technology and consistency about really needing the support in terms of student accountability and their efficacy in the classroom. In the math classroom, there's been a lot of challenges with technology on the teacher side and holding students accountable using AI and apps like Math Type and things like that that sort of make the learning of math out of students' hands because those kinds of things just do the math for them. And it's really made that idea of balancing that very difficult for teachers. So addressing that as well is something that we need. So we have two images on this slide that I want to explain a little bit. And we're going to talk more about this with our plan moving forward. But there is a researcher by the name of John Hattie that has published well over 40 books, well over 75 articles, has been an educational researcher for a very long time. And his biggest piece of research has been a compilation of over 200 or 2,000 different meta-analyses of the types of instructional practices that truly impact student achievement. And if you look at those, it might be a little hard to see from here, but collective teacher efficacy, which is really that combined effort of all teachers. So for me, the mathematics department and including the special education teachers, that combined effort really has a very high ability to positively impact student achievement. So as we move forward with our plan, I'm going to talk really a lot about making sure that our teachers are working as a collective group to support each other and to support our students in the classroom.
All right, so we know in our classrooms, we have a range of learner needs. And so the forefront of this plan is really the collaboration and how we're going to, as a team, support students, the range of the needs that they have, and their well-being and success academically, socially, throughout the classroom. And when we look at instructional practices, we are looking at differentiation and forward planning and universal design as a goal of not only focusing on intervention, but also enriching and enrichment for our students. And again, this is no easy feat, right? We have multiple teachers in the classroom. We have a range of learner needs that we're addressing. And so in looking at this, we are looking at how we can support educators to not only continue to expand their understanding of diverse learner needs, but how to effectively address these needs in the general ed setting with the appropriate supports that students are entitled to.
And I think in addition to that, and this ties back to that first theme of trust and repairing relationships, is that in the community and in the feedback that we've received, it's clear that over the past few years, prior to us joining, and even this year, that the climate around mathematics has not been the best. And it's really important that we work to uplift the mathematics climate, and that takes the community as a whole. It takes good leadership, which I truly believe Alyssa and I can do. It takes really strong support of teachers in terms of providing them what they need in terms of professional development. And it really needs to come from us, the administration, from the Board of Ed, and the parent community. Okay. So with that said, moving forward, one of our goals is to really truly engage parents and address their concerns. And we've done that so far through the Board of Ed Curriculum Committee meetings, PTO Curriculum Committee meetings, and the immediate feedback we've gotten from that is really great appreciation for that opportunity for them to share that information with us, and appreciation for real conversations about what's going on in mathematics in the classroom. And teachers are excited and ready for the professional development opportunities. They really want that support. So moving forward, we really want to turn our dialogue into positive, supportive conversations for all involved. So with that said, here is the professional development proposal that I have shared with the curriculum committees, with Dr. Giordano and Mr. Nixon at all of the meetings. And this is just the first step towards moving in the right direction. Math education as a whole is very complicated, multifaceted. So this is just one part of it, okay? That professional development plan for the upcoming school year includes working with the First Educational Resources consulting firm. I've worked with this firm in my past district for the past 4 years. They were an excellent firm. I'm very familiar with what they do and the positive impact that they had on my last district. So what this firm will do is come in along and work with us to facilitate 2 full-day teacher trainings with follow-up parent universities for parents to come in and really experience what our expectations will be in the classroom. Then in addition to that, we will have my monthly math department meetings will be dedicated to follow-up professional development, which would be 5 different additional meetings. Then we're going to continue with some of the collaborative planning release time, if you want to share about that.
Yeah, so we have started in the past with providing optional macro planning sessions for general education and special education teachers to come together, look at the needs of the students and take that into account with planning. So teachers have shared the value in that and the time that they have to really collaborate and design instruction around the needs of their students. So in looking at the math proposal here, this is really used as a way for teachers to come together, reinforce what they've learned and taken away in some of their trainings, and infuse this into the instructional planning.
And that's really significant and intensive training that the teachers have not had since pre-COVID. So for that first year, that training is for everyone in the department. By the end of the year, we will evaluate where we stand and move forward for the 25-26 school year and beyond on targeted training. So we will differentiate, just like we'd expect our teachers to do for students. We will then differentiate that training based off of the teacher's needs. Okay? So what will that training include? So this is another image from Dr. John Hattie's research. And I think it explains a little bit more about what I mean about the practices that positively impact student achievement. So he's compiled thousands and thousands of different pieces of research and created what he calls a barometer of influence, and has put quantitative data scores called an effect score to each of those strategies. And students are born to grow. That's what they're expected to do. Kids grow regardless of what we do, but there are things that we can do that will positively impact their achievement. And he's identified that score of 0.4 as the pivot point of where what we do can go beyond their natural growth. So all of these things that I have listed here are in terms of instructional strategies that our training will focus on, all fall above that 0.4 scale. So we will be focusing on how to craft effective direct instruction and mini lessons in the classroom, how to create tasks that really support student engaging in the classroom, and how to successfully go beyond that traditional approach to teaching, how they can build conceptual understanding, how they can foster environments that support discourse, problem solving, risk taking, and inquiry, how they can pose high quality, purposeful questions, how they can master and enrich learning through small group instruction. Again, going back to some of the things about building thinking classrooms, that is a piece that is missing in building thinking classrooms, is that targeted small group instruction that teachers provide within the classroom. In addition to that, feedback, effective feedback used for learning is probably one of the most effective strategies that you can use in the classroom. So we'll be focusing on that. Planning meaningful activities, targeted learning that addresses specific needs, and then, of course, implementing how to implement successfully student accommodations, modifications, and specifically designed instruction.
Yeah, the specially designed instruction within that framework, right? That is an important piece of this.
Okay, so of course, when you have something as big as this, where you're trying to impact change, it's important to know that real true change does take time and takes effort and takes support, and that support includes financial support. So there is a budget that does go along with this proposal. The cost for everything from the consultant totals $15,000, which does include the 2 full-day in-person sessions, the follow-up parent university sessions, and the 5 one-hour follow-up sessions. In addition to that, it's important that we provide as many professional resources to teachers as possible. So there is an additional $2,500 in that budget proposal to provide teachers with that material. This does not address Student textbooks, that's something that will come in the future. But just know that that could be another additional large investment. So the total proposed cost for this professional development plan is $17,500. And in our meetings with the Board of Ed Curriculum and PTO Curriculum Committee, we talked about where that money could come from. And it was shared with me that we could potentially use the Title II funds. Mr. Nixon and I discussed that as well, and we'll be working with the BA to make sure that we have that money available. Okay? So again, thank you. So my hope is now that we have taken this feedback in, we have acknowledged that feedback, that we can now move forward as a whole, as a collective group, to support this work, to support our students, and to support our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Curtis and Ms. Rush. Are there any questions from the board? I think I saw Mrs. Akiri's hand first. Oh, okay, sorry. Mrs. Kana.
I want to start off saying thank you for actually presenting this message back to the board, and it's a tough one. I also will admit it's not surprising. It reflects things that we have individually heard from parents, perhaps experienced ourselves as parents. So I appreciate you taking the time to actually bring the message back to the board. I just have a couple of questions to understand. One, what is the time frame that you have in mind for this professional development between now and start of school? It'll help to understand the time frame. The second question I have is, as you look at how do teachers take a more uniform approach where students are, irrespective of the teacher, receiving instruction in a uniform manner, are you thinking that there will be a little bit more guardrails, guidelines for how any teaching methodology or a program gets rolled out? Do you feel like there is going to be a little bit more of a prescriptive approach going forward than it was in the past? And the last and third question, as a parent, somebody who's listening to this right now, the question in my mind is, what can I expect to change in my students' classroom in their experience? So any information that you can kind of share would be helpful. Thank you.
Sure, I might have to ask you to remind me of some of your questions. But the first question in terms of the timeline, Ms. Rush and I are definitely going to be working over this summer to really make sure once this proposal and the contract with the consultant and the budget is approved, working to first put that in place and then build some, all teachers have to do a professional development plan where they set their goals. So we have a draft of a goal that we plan to provide to teachers. And that goal is connected to really evidence-based reasons of why that goal is going to be important for all of our teachers to work towards. It will be connected and supported by the Danielson rubric. We will be in classrooms observing on a regular basis for both evaluative and non-evaluative reasons to make sure that we see the training being implemented. And in terms of timeline, we plan on starting right away. Part of the proposal included that timeline, which would be that first full day would be the second day in August where all teachers are in and receiving that training. So we plan on starting it right at the beginning. Finding time for PD is a challenge with the calendar. So that's why my department meetings will be dedicated to follow-up sessions. So really the cycle will be a full day of training in August, follow-up sessions at my department meetings, then release time for teachers to work together to collaborate and plan for implementation. And then the next full day
with the follow-up parent session will be that February, I believe it's February 14th, PD day, that's in the calendar. And then that cycle restarts with follow-up sessions, release time. And then, of course, as I said before, we will be in the classrooms all year long doing that. Yeah, and this, what I shared with you tonight, those specifics is just year one. A really true effective plan is minimum 3-year plan. So when you look at what we have now and then presented to you, that's for year one. It doesn't make sense to present you a year 2 plan without knowing where we stand at the end of the year. So at the end of the year, we will reevaluate where everyone is at and then make an additional plan for the following years based off of those needs that we identify.
And the feedback from staff.
And feedback from staff. Okay.
Second question.
Can you remind me of the second question?
The second question was, is there going to be a bit more prescriptive approach in rolling out a methodology like BTC? Perhaps not as much done in the past. Do you see that changing in the future?
I think my prescription is research-based best practices. And that's what that training will be focusing on. So will I be adopting a book for teachers to follow? Absolutely not. I will be making sure that what I know as a leader in math education, what I know that works and what's proven by research from multiple researchers, not just one researcher, is what we're moving forward with. Okay. And then the third question was parent? What was
Parent.
Yes, so just parents listening to this, what can they expect to experience or change or see it, some shift in the way their children are learning?
Yeah, so I think the biggest shift that I hope to see in the classroom and what students and parents will see is that balance of direct instruction, where teachers are providing that direct instruction along with collaborative student group work and inquiry, but also intervention and enrichment provided within the classroom. I didn't specifically point that out in the slideshow, but one of the things that I've observed when students need extra help or enrichment, which is great to have the unit lunch, but most students are asked to come see me during lunch. And that intervention isn't necessarily always happening during class time. So my hope and goal would be that through that small group instruction training, the teachers begin to understand how they can use class time to provide that type of an intervention. Okay.
To jump off that as well, I think when I'm thinking about special ed in the mathematics classroom, it's students getting what they need to be successful and access the curriculum. And that may look different for all of our learners or for different groups of learners. But again, the purpose being very purposeful, strategic, rooted in the understanding of the student and the way they interact with the material, and having that feedback be a live source for them to internalize and continue to utilize in the way they move forward in the classroom.
Mrs. Zakiri.
Thank you for the presentation. And I'll echo some of the same sentiment that Dipti said, that acknowledging these concerns from various sources is important. My first question is, you did acknowledge that you want to move away from being more reliant on technology and Delta Math, and you want to focus on direct instruction. So having this proposal for a multi-year thing is great, but what can we do or learn from other districts that have successfully embraced BTC? I think one of the feedback that we've got is, can we as a district prescribe and say, in a math class from 6 to 12, there will be 75% traditional instruction. And then, or what is your take? Like, what does the research tell you? And from a collaborative consultative model, this is my second question. And as a parent of somebody with an IEP, I would ask, having these whiteboards and giving multiple questions and assigning them as groups is great. But the feedback that I'm sure you've heard is these classrooms get very noisy sometimes because you have multiple children, you are asking them to collaborate. And as a parent, I feel like sometimes you're asking students, you're assigning them 6 problems and saying, take 2 each. So are you effectively asking a student to solve this problem and explain it to their friend in this collaborative model? But what if a special ed student doesn't get it? And now we do not have integrated classrooms. So you do not have a dedicated special ed teacher for the entire length of the classroom. So how are you catching those gaps, or are children falling through the cracks?
Sure, there's a lot in that question, and I'm going to do my best to address it. One thing feel like I need to address right away is the idea of traditional direct instruction being 75%. That is not a recommendation I would make. Because now there's a difference between direct instruction and traditional lecture. And if you have a teacher in front of the classroom that's standing in front of the classroom for 75% of the time, you're getting into that lecture structure. And if you go back to this barometer of research-based instructional practices, and I don't have that in here, but I have the resource, you can look it up. Traditional lecture-styled instruction actually negatively impacts student achievement, because the students or who's learning, the person that's learning is the person that's doing the thinking and doing the work. So if the teacher is in front of the classroom and is the sole person or 75% of the time doing the work and doing the thinking, that's not going to improve our student achievement. And that's one thing that I want to talk about just a little bit with that as well, is because another part of this feedback that has not been included in here is talking about our state assessment scores and our school rankings. And we definitely do not want that pendulum of too much of one thing swinging completely to the other side and being too much of the other. So yes, we need to have direct instruction in the classroom, but it should definitely not be 75% of the classroom time. And in terms of dealing with students that need that extra support and the special needs in the classroom when they're doing collaborative group work, that is actually the time in which teachers would implement small group instruction or small group intervention. And that's for all students, whether they're special needs with a 504 and IEP accommodation plan. But it's really important that teachers know how to use formative assessment data to really know their students and who they are in terms of mathematical learners, and using that data to proactively plan for those interventions. And that's the piece that I mentioned before that is missing in building thinking classrooms, is that proactively planned small group instruction and feedback time. So that is a piece that they will be provided training on in this plan. And I just want to really, I know we want change and we want it now, but that was the mistake that was made with building thinking classrooms, is teachers, from what I've been told, teachers were given the book to read over the summer and were told they were expected to implement it in the fall. Some teachers did it and did it well. Some teachers really need that training and support. And if I were to do the same thing, then this wouldn't be successful. We'll have that same issue all over again. So it's really important that we understand that this takes time, it takes effort, and teachers need to know that it's okay to start small and move forward in a positive way so that I don't get pushback, or I don't get teachers that get frustrated, or students that get frustrated, or things like that. So it is a multi-year goal.
So when I said 75%, it was based on one of the neighboring districts that has this. But my question was, would you recommend when you said you want to go for a more uniform approach, and this is one of the concern, like, are all teachers in grade 6 to 12 instructing in a uniform fashion? So what is your guidance? I understand this consultant multi-year plan, but what's a reality right now? The current state is we have rolled out BTC, and let's not harp on the past. What has happened has happened. And you have the concerns, we know the results. What is it that you're going to do differently in addition to this consultant come 2024, 2025 year? You said that student textbooks, you want to move away from technology, and you will consider student textbooks in future. So what's the future date? Are next year students going to get student textbooks? Because I did see in our budget line item that we had money budgeted for textbooks. So would you make a recommendation during the summer that starting 2024, 2025, students will have access to textbooks? Then,
Can I
Yeah.
pause you so I can
Yeah.
address that? No, it will not be for 24, 25. That's not budgetary. It's not possible in the budget. If you're interested in moving forward with looking at textbooks or online textbook resources through 6 through 12, you're looking at a minimum of $500,000 or more. It's a significant investment that is not included in the budget for 24, 25. If you know, I wasn't here in the fall. We develop our budget proposals in the fall of the school year for the next school year. So if that's something, that's the direction we're looking to go, I would work on collecting that information and making a budget proposal this fall for the 25-26 school year. And it's a significant amount of money. So we would have to have conversations about what does that rollout look like? And, you know, I know we like numbers, and I know we like hard data and hard lines for people, but that's not human behavior. So it's not appropriate for me to say that all of my math classes, grades 6 through 12, will spend this % on direct instruction, because that's not responsive to student needs. Teachers need to be able to respond to student needs, which means if in this particular unit on this particular day, the class needs more direct instruction, then the teacher needs to be able to provide that. Or if on this day, in this particular unit, the students need to have more practice time, then the teacher needs to have the ability to make that decision. But those decisions need to be based off their data and evidence that they're collecting on student performance through formative assessment. So that is not something that I would be comfortable in doing at all.
so if I hear you, we had 2 years of BTC. So somebody who started 6th grade in 2022, 2023 year, and they've had 2 years of BTC. So next year is going to be this pilot or proof of concept of moving away from it. So basically those 3 years in middle school, you are aware of the concerns, but we cannot do something short term. What is a short term thing that we can do? I agree, money is not budgeted for the textbooks, but what is it in the short term that you can do for next school year?
Which
is it?
is this professional development proposal, letting teachers know that they can begin to implement and take small steps so that we ensure that it's successful. And I can tell you, there's not a single class in this school district that's full on BTC.
Okay.
It doesn't exist. Teachers are doing parts of it. They're doing the parts that they felt worked best for their classroom. And I will share with you that some of these things that I'm talking about are a part of building thinking classrooms, because there are best practices in that. And when I spoke, and I do want to go back to that feedback, is that the feedback I gathered from all of the parents and the PTOs and everyone that I talked about, the overwhelming message was that they weren't so much against building thinking classrooms, but that they felt that the teachers needed the support and the training on how to best implement the strategies, which is why we are going with this focus on professional development. And I just really caution you with this idea of saying that we all have to make this huge change in 1 year because it will not be successful. We need to be able to start small. We need to be able to give teachers time to adjust and students time to adjust to what they're used to.
Thank you, Dr. Curtis and Ms. Rush.
I have one follow-up question, Mrs.
Is it
Principal.
quick? Because
Yes,
we
yeah.
could email.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this first educational resources, it's a multi-year plan and you are planning on using some of the Title II. So the same Title II funds, can we get maybe not a textbook for every student? Have we explored that possibility?
So Title II funds aren't for textbooks.
Okay.
Title II funds is for supporting teachers in academic needs and programs connected to meeting the needs of students.
Okay, I'll
Thank
follow
you.
up. My other questions, I'll send them to you as an email.
Thank
on
you.
All rooms.
Mr. Nixon, anything else? No. Okay, we will move on to report of the student representatives.
Hello, everyone. As we just heard in the auditorium, a huge congratulations to the Governor Livingston baseball team as the group defeated Pascack Valley in the final round of the Group 2 state tournament 3-0. Junior Maddie Diskin was the highlight of the game, tossing a complete game shutout while recording 10 strikeouts. Thank you.
Good evening. Throughout the month of June, GL has been celebrating LGBTQ Pride Month with different activities, sales outside of the cafeteria, and parties with the Saga Club, as well as faculty spirit days. Finals for GL students will be completed on Wednesday, June 10th, marking the final 2 days before graduation. Graduation will be held on Friday after school, weather permitting. After the ceremony, graduates will have a couple of hours to celebrate with family before arriving back at GL for project graduation, which is a much anticipated tradition for seniors. Congratulations to the class of 2024. Thank you and have a great summer.
Okay, thank you, Olivia and Jake. You can leave when you need to leave. Committee and liaison reports, an update on board goals. The board continues to refine and standardize our committee meetings. Our second goal, the board is continuing to pilot remote participation at tonight's board meeting with visual and auditory participation. The board is continuing the evaluation of the former superintendent, and the deadline is July 1st. The board has given input into the budget process. As to our professional development, the board president met with our newest member, Mrs. Huffnagel, and updated her on the requirements for board training. In terms of the Veterans Affairs Committee, the Veterans Affairs Committee met on Wednesday, June 5th, to elect a new president and to review the events of Memorial Day. The Town Council liaison, the Town Council meets tomorrow night. This evening, they had the Pride Month flag raising that was held today. Oh, is it tomorrow? Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Pogue. The Berkeley Heights Education Foundation met on Tuesday, June 4th. There were concerns expressed about e-scooter safety this summer. The BHEF voted to donate ice pops to accompany a video that the Berkeley Heights Police Department is creating on safety. The video will be shared in the district on Wednesday, June 12th. The BHEF submitted their very generous gifts of over $13,000 to our school district, which will be looked at our next meeting. This concludes my liaison reports. Are there any other committee or liaison reports? Yes, Mrs. Khanna.
So this is the report from the Union County Educational Services Commission meeting. They had a meeting on June 5th. Somewhat similar to the agenda that we had today. They recognized the folks that were retiring from the district after many, many years of service. They also had their reorg meeting. So pretty much like the way we had ours in January, they had a reorg meeting. They chose the new president, the new vice president, and the board of directors, as well as sort of reconfirm the representative assembly of all the towns in the meeting.
And just an aside, the chocolates again are provided by the students at Westlake School who use this as an opportunity to learn kitchen skills and monetary skills. Mrs. Jolly.
Thank you. Not so much a committee update, but it was wonderful to be at the CMS Awards night. I wasn't able to make it to the high school awards, but sometimes you forget how little they are when yours get bigger. So it was really wonderful to see all the great achievements of
It was great. And GL was great also. Such accomplishments that we have here. We really need to celebrate. Any other? Okay, board communications, Mr. Secretary.
I just have one. One is it's from Miss Ashley Combs, GL French teacher. It's a dismissal of a HIB in my personal experience. That's the only one I have.
Thank you. We'll move to comments from the public on agenda items.
Oh, I also,
I'm
for some reason, this wasn't on here, is the report of my report.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Secretary.
At GL, we had a new air conditioner was installed in the art room. Mary Kay, there was wood chips were begun to be spread, and work was completed on 6/7. Call for a utility dig out was made to install a new interactive playground sign for the upper playground. Mountain Park playground wood chips have been spread around the playground, and that has been completed. Roof repairs were also completed there. Maintenance department was able to assist contractor to fix the ongoing issue with power supplies to the fans. Used playground wood chips were also spread throughout the playgrounds there, and that has been completed. William Woodruff playground chips also been spread throughout the playground. That has been completed there. Columbia Middle School building maintenance system for HVAC was not working properly. Has found that there was a spliced wire which has cut off communication, not allowing the program to run properly. It has now been fixed and is in good working order. Fire alarm company installed a new beam detector in the gold gym. This allows the alarm to go off when smoke breaks the beam. District-wide, we had a temporary transfer of the head custodian from CMS to assist at Mountain Mary Kay. A new interim head custodian was assigned to oversee custodial operations at CMS. A winner of the New Jersey School Buildings and Grounds Central Chapter Scholarship was chosen from Governor Livingston, and the scholarship was $1,000. Graduation preparation was underway and all tasks have been completed. Custodians are ready with their team members. Lighting project. For over 2 years of research and meetings with a variety of vendors, the Berkeley Heights BOE has taken a massive step toward continuing the goal of becoming more environmentally green. A final vendor was chosen based on several meetings and inputs from the maintenance department to find the right LED lighting program that fits our needs. We will be implementing a program to install over 400 plus lights in 2 sizes for all 6 of our schools. This project will cost over $22,000. However, in working with the lighting partner, we were able to utilize a program with instant rebates. This will save districts of thousands of dollars. I think the actual cost would be $19,660. The net cost to our district, I believe, was $3,109. The savings will not only provide savings on the actual cost of the bulbs, but on the lighting of the ballast, man hours, maintenance, and overall cost to our electric bill. I believe the bulbs, there was a count of 1,628 bulbs. I believe that savings would be $14,521.76 with the bulb savings. Ballast that wouldn't have to be purchased, that cost would be $14,231.44. This is the first stage of what we hope would be many more upgrades to our lighting system. With our new LED lights, we will be providing safer, efficient, and even lighting for our students, staff, and all those who enter our building. Lastly, we have a new company was hired to perform our asbestos inspections going forward. And that concludes my business administrator's report.
Thank you. Comments from the public on agenda items. During this portion of the meeting, district residents and staff are invited to address the Board of Education on agenda action items only. The board requests that individuals state their name, town of residence, or school of attendance for the record. All comments should be directed to the board president, and depending upon the nature and complexity of the question, it may or may not be answered during the meeting by the administration. If so, the response would occur after the public portion of the meeting has concluded. Although the board may not respond to all items raised during the public forum, all public comments will be considered. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Specifically, the comments regarding the personnel matters are discouraged and cannot be responded to by the board. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded by the law of New Jersey. The board bears no responsibility, nor will it be liable for any comments made by members of the public. Please note that if any member of the public becomes disruptive during the meeting, the board president may terminate the participant's statement. Continued disruptions may result in removal from or adjournment of the meeting. We will take public comments first, then we will move to our Zoom. Each speaker's statement will be limited to 3 minutes in duration.
Hi, Debbie Torrero. First of all, I just want to say I love this time of year because we're honoring our students in the district. So thank you all for making sure you acknowledge our kids. Tonight was amazing that we were able to honor the educators in the district and celebrating them for all they do. Of course, all these awards are well deserving, as well as some of the teachers that haven't been acknowledged tonight because they are all great educators. So thank you. I know that Ms. Bradford actually mentioned this before, so I just wanted to touch on this because I want the community to be aware. Berkeley Heights announced today on the Berkeley Heights website regarding the e-rider safety campaign regarding the children's safety on the roads this summer. I want to thank Ms. Bradford and Mr. Nixon specifically for expeditiously responding to ensure that the #1 priority of our children and their safety, you both, along with the Berkeley Heights Police Department and the township, were instrumental in collaborating to make that happen. So thank you very much for putting our kids first.
Anyone else in person? Mr. Marks, do we have anybody online? Okay. Mr. McGuez, you have a comment for this evening? Mr. McGuez, you have a comment for this evening? Mr. McGuez, do you have a comment for this evening?
He's rejoining the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Mr. McGuez, your
I was
comment.
like talking for 2 minutes. Hi. Which, probably you don't want to hear anyway. John McGuez, Berkeley Heights, New Jersey. I thought the two speakers did an excellent job. It was really nice to hear folks from the district validating parental concerns, but also kind of asserting themselves. It was just a nice, respectful, straightforward, no nonsense presentation. I just had 2 questions because I'm not too familiar with this, obviously. Is this model, is it a model or is it a collection of practices? That's the first thing. Like, is it sort of this eclectic pool that teachers are going to be trained on and evaluated on, or is it like this sort of model that someone's going to follow? And then the second question I guess I have, it feels a little underfunded. It just feels that way intuitively. And I wonder, how is fidelity going to be maintained? Like, how are we going to how are teachers going to be supported and evaluated? Because I think one of the biggest things to system change is sort of this feedback loop. Um, and if it's not a model, how, and it's a bunch of these like eclectic practices, how is fidelity to that determined? And I guess because this is a starting point, those are my two big questions. Or
Thank you.
main questions, I'm sorry. I don't know if they're big, but they're main questions.
Thank you. I see no other participants on Zoom at this time. Mr. Nixon, can you address anything?
I think we can share both of those questions with Dr. Curtis and Ms. Rush, just to kind of get their feedback specifically. I know from what Dr. Curtis said, it's based upon research-based best practices. So he was asked, was it a specific model or a set of practices? But we can get both of these questions to them and have them give a little bit more clear, specific answers.
Thank you. So, Mr. McGuez, we will get back to you on that. Moving on now to administration. Resolutions A through N, all board members. May I have a motion for the resolution?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Jolly, second,
Second.
Mrs. Khanna. Any discussion?
I do have a question on D. Authorize personnel start dates between board meetings. The last part of the resolution is any such action shall be presented to the board for approval at their next regular meeting. Would it be better to just be next meeting, special or regular, without making that distinction? Would that be faster to get to that approval?
I didn't make the resolution or suggestion. I can't answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that would be quicker. I'm assuming this is the common language. This is language that's on the agenda for an approval each year. So typically it is the next regular meeting. We do have a lot of special meetings coming up. So if business can be conducted at those meetings based upon, how many board members we have available and what topics can be covered at that meeting. So I know some of them are special meetings related to the superintendent search. So if possible, sure, certainly.
I have a follow-up. This is for the whole of next school year, right? This resolution? It's not just for summer, for the whole year. So I think we need to have that as the next board meeting, if we can make an amendment to that resolution, if you're fine with it. Because if this is going from now in June till next July or June, we would want to, I think superintendent search will be done hopefully by January. So I'm hoping we can amend the resolution if that's okay with you, Mr. Nixon, just to change.
Mr. Disler.
So no issues legally from that. Just reminder with your special meetings, you just have to make sure that they are advertised accordingly to include that on there, because sometimes with special meetings, they're not advertised that, then you're limited, obviously, because you didn't notify the public that you would take such action.
So basically, any special meetings on the calendar for next year needs to say formal action may be taken if we are approving anything.
That's not the case. It's normally, and as I've stated before, anytime I have to advertise for a meeting, I have to include what we're going to be speaking about.
Okay, so if this resolution changes to the next board meeting, then maybe we can effectively put like a disclaimer that goes to all special meetings.
So you just have to add your special meeting advertisement, the subject of the special meeting, maybe personnel action as well.
Okay.
Do we want to do the amendment on this resolution D now?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a motion to amend resolution D?
Motion to amend resolution D to change to next meeting. So just, yeah, remove the word regular.
Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
Roll call vote?
Ms. Khanna,
Yes.
Ms. Akiri,
Yes.
Dr. Forger,
Yes.
Mr. Hyman,
Yes.
Ms. Jolly,
Yes.
Ms. Stanley,
No.
Ms. Bradford.
Yes.
We have Kelly.
Yep, I'm crossing out names on my little sidebar here. Hold on one second. Hold on.
Huffnagel.
Ms. Huffnagel,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, then we'll continue on. Resolutions A through N. We have a motion.
We have to do the vote for now. That was just the amendment. Now we have to go back and do the roll call for
Right.
the rest.
Right. Okay, roll call for resolutions A through N under administration.
Ms. Jolly,
Yes.
Ms. Khanna,
Yes.
Ms. Akiri,
It's a yes to all. I'm abstaining on B and K and L because we haven't seen these K and L manuals yet. So
Sure.
yes to all, abstain on B, K as in Kansas, L as in Larry.
thank you. Dr. Forger,
Abstain on B, K, and L, a yes to the rest of them.
Mr. Hyman,
Yes to all except abstaining on the two non-GL. So under B, it's 264990 and 265106, these two.
okay, so you're abstaining on those?
Correct. Otherwise, yes to all.
Okay, so that was 264. I'm just gonna put the last two, okay. Last two. Mrs. Jolly? Oh, I'm sorry, I have you already. Okay, Mrs. Stanley,
No to C and D, yes to the rest.
Ms. Huffnagel,
Abstain from B, yes to the rest.
Ms. Bradford?
Yes to all.
Okay, so we have one, two. Just see here. We have 3 abstentions. Two and 3. I'm gonna, Mr. Disla might need a little hand here because we had this issue the last time. I just want to make sure we have these correct. I believe that out of the 2 abstentions, definitely the first case, there's 1, 2, 3. There will be 4. Now, do we go to 1, 2, 3, 4 members that are voting? That first case now becomes fails. With number B under administration with the HIP case. Because we have the first case, we have 4 members that have
So
abstained, and we have,
6, 5, 7, 8, 1.
that is correct.
Okay.
So we have 4 members that have abstained on that one. All right, and we have 4 members that have passed. That case now becomes, This is the second time, and I just want to make sure that I'm correct. So we take out our abstentions, then it should pass.
I'm pretty confident it passes. You wanna
Hey,
move on?
AJ, can you just clarify who the four abstentions? You're talking about the first case, far left, right?
Yes, 4 cases.
Who were the
first
four
one,
abstentions?
It would pass, and then the rest of them would pass as well. I just want to ensure that.
Three on the first case,
Right.
three on the second.
Just want to clarify, right? I'm only abstaining to 2 of those 3.
Yes. I'm going by the first, and the rest would all pass. I'm just want to make sure of that.
Which ones are the issue, the 4-0 or 3-0?
It's 4. 4 abstentions just on the first one. And then that would mean the other 2 cases then would definitely pass.
If I can jump in and help, it's
Yep.
on the GL vote, there's 5 yeses, 0 nos, 3
Mhm.
abstentions. Correct.
Yes, I'm just concerned about
The
first.
second 2 are 4 yeses, 0 nos, 4 abstentions.
This, your extension due to it being a non-GL. Okay, so you're not, even though it says all board members, you're consider yourself not eligible to vote in that one. Correct. And that drops you down to a 7, right? Yes. 7. So 3, 4 out of 7. But you still don't need, no, because it's still 3-0, which is what's the, I just need to find the minimum requirement, which I believe is 3 is what we determined last time, right?
That's
I believe
correct.
They pass. I'll double check.
They all pass. That's
They all pass.
what I thought, and I just wanted to make sure of that. So motion passes on all these.
Mr. Secretary, may I proceed?
Yes.
Thank you. Education, resolutions A through L, all board members. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Hyman moved, a second.
I'll second.
Mrs. Zakiri, a second. Discussion? Mrs. Jolly?
So I had a question about item B. So I know that we in previous, last year, we had Educare on as a company as well, and they provide a virtual services. And I think in curriculum committee, we had been presented with proximity learning to take out Educare, but we never got clarity on pricing, so it was never put forth. So I don't see Educare here, or there was one other company that we contracted with last year for virtual instruction. So I'm just kind of curious, where does that leave us with respect to virtual instruction?
We still have one meeting coming up, June 20th. So some items that we're working on, we've moved to that agenda. Thank you.
Mrs. Stanley?
So I just wanted to thank the BHEA for working with us on the sidebar agreement for summer curriculum writing. I think it's really important for our district, and I really want to thank everybody for working hard on that because I know it wasn't easy this year.
Okay, thank you. Roll call vote?
Mr. Hyman?
Yes to all.
Ms. Kiri?
Yes to all.
Dr. Forger?
Yes to all.
Ms. Jolly?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Connor?
Yes to all?
Ms. Stanley?
Yes.
Ms. Huffnagel?
Yes.
Ms. Bradford?
Yes to all.
Motion passes.
Moving on to personnel. Resolutions A through K, all board members. Resolutions L through O, Berkeley Heights only. Mr. Hyman, motion,
So moved.
second.
Second?
Mrs. Khanna, second. Discussion.
Are we missing a C? Was there a C or not? I just missed it.
Ms. Huffnagel's asking if there was a C.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure there wasn't something I was missing. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, but-
We can send a search party, Mrs. Hubbard.
No other discussion? Roll call vote, please, Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Hyman,
I'm a no to girls head soccer coach at GL. Otherwise, yes to all that's under D. Sorry, 80K is what I'm allowed to approve. So a no to just that line item within D. Otherwise, yes on A through K.
and that was a soccer coach. And that was A to K. Mrs. Connor?
I'm just gonna give you the no's. No to the GL head girls soccer coach, no to item I, and yes to everything else.
So it was D and I. D was soccer coach, girl.
That's right.
D and I and I to everything else. Yes to everything else. Okay.
Yep.
Ms. Akiri,
So it's a no to girls soccer coach and no to I. Everything else is a yes.
Dr. Forger,
Okay, so it's a no to the girls soccer coach in D, and no on I, and yes to everything else.
Ms. Jolly,
I'm actually going to abstain on D for the girls' head soccer coach, and I'm a no to I and yes to everything else.
Mrs. Stanley,
I'm a no to the girls soccer coach, but yes to everything else.
Ms. Huffnagel,
I'm a no to I and yes to everything else.
Ms. Bradford,
No to girls, head girls soccer coach, yes to everything else.
okay, it looks like everything passes except for girls soccer coach. And it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 on, looks like 5 ayes, so I does not pass either, and everything else does.
Mr. Gisler, would you like to explain a little bit more at this time?
Yeah, so I appreciate all the patience with me on the last vote. So I just pulled your policy, so I figured there's no better time than the present to kind of make sure we avoid.
Is your mic?
Can anyone hear me?
Not really.
Not on the Zoom. Oh, wow, that's way too loud. I've never had anyone not be able to hear me before, so I appreciate that. So I appreciate the board's patience with me as I was reviewing the policies. I figured now is better time than any to just kind of walk the board through and the public, how many votes are needed to pass. So I was looking at your board policy, that's 0165. That's your policy on voting. So with regard to abstentions, and I should say there's no legal requirement when it comes to this, but there's some court cases out there, but for the most part, your board policy will control when a motion passes and does not pass. So if you look at 0165, it talks about abstentions. So the way your board handles it via policy, an abstention does not count as a vote. It is recorded, but it does not count in the purpose of calculating the vote. So your board, as many boards do, but not all, does have a minimum threshold. And what your policy talks about is that even if everyone abstains except one vote, right? That's the fear that only, could you pass a 1-0? And your board policy does not allow that. It sets it at the minimum, the number of affirmative votes is at least a majority of the board's quorum. So in your perspective, it does not matter whether they're sending rep or not, because when you have 8 board members, majority of 8 is 5. So a majority of 5 is 3. And when you drop to 7, that's a quorum is 4. Majority of 4 is also 3, right? In both cases, you require at least 3 affirmative votes. So if you have 3 votes and it's 3-0, 3-1, or 3-2, a motion passes. Any questions on that?
I thought there is a Supreme Court decision that abstains are neither a yes or a no. So when you have 8 board members, which is what we had here,
Mhm.
and there are 4 abstentions, and you're not counting them as a yes or a no,
Yep.
you don't have a quorum.
So
But
the quorum, in my view, has always been, I could pull your definition. They are still there and present. They are able to vote. They're not conflicted out. They've just abstained. And so in my mind, the quorum that you're talking about here, right? Because you could set it at minimum number of individuals voting. But you've specifically indicated it's your number of individuals who are purpose of a quorum. Right, because they are present, they are voting members, and your policy is clear, they're recorded,
according,
but they're just not counted as purposes of the vote.
I'll send you my question back.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to look at it. Again, I'm pulling your policy and I agree with you. An abstention is neither a yes nor a no. It's pulled out of the count, but it's just for purposes of calculating what a minimum is required.
So what would happen if those that abstain just stepped away from the table? It wouldn't be a board quorum at that point, right?
So I'd have to do, if it's just 3 people voting,
Yeah,
that would not be a quorum.
okay.
So you would not have a quorum for the meeting and therefore the meeting would discontinue at that point. Yes. But that's why, again, that's the difference, right? They're abstaining, so the vote moves forward. But again, we're talking about the minimum threshold required.
Okay.
But you feel free to send me. I'm always happy to look into. I am not perfect. I will the first to admit that. So if there is cases out there that say differently than I'm happy to look at them.
I
But
don't
of
have
course,
my computer, so I can't pull up the case law, but
Do
I'll
do
email
not
it to you. Yeah.
email it to me. I will take a look at it. Again, my ego is not too big to ever admit I'm wrong if I am, but again, I'm pulling your policy. I've looked into this issue in the past. And traditionally, I do agree with you, what the cases say about what an abstention is. I think we slightly disagree on whether the effect on a quorum, but I'm happy to look into it.
Thank you. And that would be emailed to the board secretary.
Yes, if you would like to send that to the board secretary, I will look into it. I will send it back. And then my preference is, of course, then any board question, remember the questions in, if it can be shared out to the full board.
I wasn't planning to send it directly to you. I was going to send it to Mr. Nixon to have it.
Either is fine. Again, I'm not picky when it comes, but I think just having a process in place is always helpful for me.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, moving on to business resolutions. A through S, all board members. Resolution T is Berkeley Heights only. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Jolly moved. A second?
Second.
Mrs. Khanna, discussion. Yes, Dr. Ford? Or-
Yeah, I just have a question on this transportation contract. Does a yes vote here constitute approval of the actual routes, or are we gonna get that later?
There was an
Okay.
email sent earlier today because the question came up and I
Okay.
addressed it to the full board.
What time is that?
After I've sent out many of them, I don't recall.
Okay. All right. So, okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Mrs. Stanley?
So first, I just want to thank everybody for, especially you, AJ, for working with the facility fee schedule, working with PAL to try to come up with something that was feasible for everybody. So I think moving forward, everyone will be happy. My next one is, I did not see this when I was looking at it, but I saw it tonight. So I'm confused on number O. I'm sorry, letter O. So this kind of looks like our extra duties, but I'm confused because HIB is not on this list. And I know Miss Nardi also has a extra thing, and I don't see it on this list either. Do we know if it's just missing or if it's comes out a different time of year, or? Because we have all the other principals and their duties.
So-
I'd have to take a look. Maybe it got separated when we did this because maybe at the time it wasn't. I'd have to go back and take a look.
Okay. Is
So-
there any reason we couldn't table this tonight?
I just did it because I only had only a few items on here and I was trying to alleviate an overload for the 20th. So
Yeah.
that's why I put it here. As I suggested, I had a lot of stuff that was back for the reorg meeting back in January, but I said I was gonna take some of that off and put them where they should be, which is in June, June meeting. And that's what I was doing.
Yeah, so I'm gonna make a motion to table number O, just because I believe there is two principal. I know Mr. Morris is the homeless liaison, but he also is an HIB coordinator. So do I have a second?
I think some of the annual appointments were approved last meeting.
Mrs. Jolly?
I don't know.
Pamela, I think that there was one that is missing here because on the original version, it was a TBD. So I wasn't sure. It was for
Yeah, but that
corrective action. Is
wasn't
the
that.
one
That's
you're-
for the assistant superintendent who we don't have at the moment, or at the end of the month. So I'm just, but Nardi and the HIB is missing. So
Could
just wanna
we
make
add
sure.
those at the next meeting on June 20th?
Right, so
if
I'm
we
just
need to?
asking if we table it, then we can do it at the next meeting. Like this doesn't need to be done tonight.
We've already approved the HIBs, the HIB coordinators.
We did.
Yes,
So Mr. Morroso is the.
and Ms. Nevis.
What
Yeah.
about Mrs. Nardi's position?
We can look into that one.
Yeah. Right, so I'd still like to make the motion. Would anybody second it? And we can move it to the June 20th meeting.
Sure, I'll second it.
Thank you, Natasha.
Can I ask, how many votes are needed to table to the next meeting? What is it, a 2/3?
Hold on.
Well, I'm a little concerned with that answer being before we vote, right? Because it looks like we're gonna try to play with the votes and that's disingenuous.
So we need to clarify.
Second. I don't have it, but I believe it's a majority, and then at the next meeting to kill it, it would be a 2/3. So if you want to vote, I believe it's a majority. I will double check as we are doing, but I don't want to hold up the meeting. But again,
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor and there's a second to table item O at this point. So Mr. Secretary, we need a roll call.
Ms. Stanley,
Yes.
Ms. Jolly,
Yes.
Ms. Akiri,
No.
Dr. Forager,
No.
Mr. Hyman,
Yes.
Ms. Connor,
No.
Ms. Huffnagel,
Yes.
Ms. Bradford.
No.
So we have 4 yeses and 4 nos, which means that motion fails.
So we'll get back to our roll call vote on sorry, excuse me, we are on
Business.
business. Thank you.
Discussion, right? Can we discuss?
Mrs. Akira, you have something else for discussion?
Yeah, on
Okay.
D, approve the transportation contract. This is for starting from 2024. Is this for the 2024-2025 school year is my first question.
Yes.
And the routes on this, we are not approving the routes. We're just approving the transportation contract,
This is the transportation contract.
which includes routes.
These are the routes that were done by first student that we approved last year. These are the renewals for those same routes. It's missing one route that they didn't want to take on. So the one route that they're not taking on is going to be done, I believe, by Morris Union Jointure Commission, which we don't have that contract yet from them.
So these routes that are included in contract, the transportation contract for D are the 15 routes that Mr. Nixon had recommended that we continue with for this school year.
I believe that's correct. I don't know how many routes off the top of my head. I don't have that number.
Okay.
There was an attachment that was with it.
No, there was a presentation that was made by Mr. Nixon on how many existing routes.
But I'm saying that in this, there was an attachment for that with those routes. So I don't know or remember off the top of my head.
Dr. Forager.
Okay, I think that you can correct me if I'm wrong here. I think we're just approving, when we approve a route for this, at this point, it would just be approving the beginning point, the ending point, and the times. But the intermediate details of what actually is the entire route, that's going to come later. Is that right? Okay. My understanding is all we're doing tonight is approving start time, end time, beginning and ending of a route, but anything intermediate is still up to Kelly to refine and based on whatever information she has, and that the detailed route will actually be approved later on. Is that right?
Right. Kelly's specific feedback was on the agenda. What is listed is not an actual route, but approval of the renewal of the first student contract for next year. Included in this contract are only the routes that first student drives. There are various routes throughout the district that first student will drive, but not inclusive of all routes.
Okay, but I think the contract sort of locks us in though to start times and end times, doesn't it? Okay.
We would have to ask Kelly specifics on that.
And you know, the where you pick up and where you drop off. I thought that was basically right in there.
Which building?
Yeah, I mean, the contractor wants to know who they pick, when does the route start and where? And I thought that's what this contract says.
That was in the attachment.
Okay.
Mrs. Khanna?
So one quick clarification, Mr. Nixon. My understanding of the process is Kelly's working through the sort of detailed routes now that she knows how many students that are qualified, how many students who want to sign up for subscription busing. This contract that's up for renewal gives us, if I remember right, I think it was 10 routes with 4 student, and this is maybe one less perhaps. Don't hold me to it, but that's what I remember. So fair to say that the district will assess the capacity needed to support those interested in the busing and the subscription busing. And then we'll have to figure out, maybe there's a district bus that will support the route, or we have to go to MUJC or another vendor to support this for the next school year. Is that the sequence of events right now?
Generally speaking, yes.
Okay.
Mrs. Sheehan is in the process of evaluating all the routes and what we need to do to make sure that they're all properly, running.
Mrs. Stanley?
So these routes are the same routes as last year, right? There's no additional and there's no subtraction of the routes, right? With this contract, with this vendor. So it's the same as last year, which is what, we've been discussing. The other equation is that we have other contracts and we have other buses that are district buses that we do have the flexibility to change, where this one we don't, right?
Yeah.
Because we're in a contract. And then that's the biggest problem, is that we would have, right? If we would have to go out to rebid, and we know that that would be extremely costly at this time of year. So, so it's the same routes, not any additional.
I
Mrs.
think we are
Akiri.
subtracting one route though from AJ's. We are not keeping it as is as last year. We're subtracting one in this contract. Okay.
That's what I stated
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah. So when I'm just clarifying that it's not. I have one other discussion item on E. I did see your email around 3 o'clock, AJ. Thank you for responding. So on E, approval to return unused balance of capital projects to capital reserve account. If we don't approve it, this money doesn't stay allocated to these projects. Instead, it goes into the surplus. Is that a correct assumption?
That's correct.
How do we put it back? If these these were vetted, I think some of them are roofing projects. So if you want to bring them back on, can it be done before the budget session? Can it be done between now and next year? That's the first part. And the second part is.
Let's go one
Yeah.
part at a time.
Okay.
If I want to do these projects at any point in time,
Mhm.
all I gotta do is a resolution, bring them back on, and I add them back into the budget. That's all I need to do.
Okay. So why?
And the one with the roofing,
Mhm.
those projects probably won't be done until the 25-26 year, because they would probably be done in the summer of 25.
Okay. So when you say you want to put them back on, you do need, so why are we removing them? Is it because we didn't get the state approvals on time,
I
or?
did not get the paperwork yet. As I've stated in the 2 budget meetings we had, April 24th and 5/7. When I gave the presentations, I spoke of those in both those sessions, that the paperwork from the state has not come yet. Nobody has gotten it. And it is way too late to go to bid. And those projects have to be done in the summer because they take multiple weeks to do it. And they have to be done while the kids are out of school, because they'll be creating a smell
I know.
that'll be taken right into the duct system.
So so every school district is waiting for this paperwork from
That is-
DCA.
That is
So
correct.
If the paperwork does come in the next 6 months, or let's say it comes in December or January, let's be hopeful. So when you do get them back, you're gonna let the board know that the paperwork is approved, and then we can immediately put a resolution on the agenda to do these projects, or how does the process work?
Well, that's probably what would happen. And then from there, I'd get once that happens, I'd put a resolution back on.
Mhm.
I'd get the architect to start working on the specifications, and then we can go out to bid.
So
And then we would probably, well, I don't know about going out to bid. I can't go to bid that soon, and I have to wait till later. Probably say January in order to go out to bid.
Yeah, so is this DCA that's holding up, which is the government body that's holding up the paperwork?
That is correct.
DCA.
There's not a heck of a whole lot of people that work down there. So
Got it.
that's what hold up the process.
Okay, so maybe a trip down to Trenton. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you're not gonna get somebody to probably even answer the door or the phone.
We can try a field trip.
Okay, thank you. Roll call vote.
Ms. Jolly,
I'm a yes, sorry. Yes on everything except check number 20.
That's finance.
Oh, that's finance, I'm sorry. On business. I think I'm mislabeled, I apologize. I'm yes to all.
Mrs. Connor,
Yes to all.
Ms. Akiri,
Yes to all.
Dr. Forga,
Yes to all.
Mr. Hyman,
Yes on items A through S.
Mrs. Stanley,
No to O because I believe it's incomplete, and yes to everything else. And thank you for the donation of the ice pops.
Mrs. Huffnagel,
Yes to all.
Ms. Bradford,
Yes to all.
motion passes.
Moving on to finance, resolution A, all board members. Who looked at the bills?
I was allocated and I did.
Thank you, Mrs. Akiri. A motion for resolution A,
So moved.
Mrs. Khanna moved, second,
Second.
Mrs. Jolly second, discussion. Okay, roll call vote.
Mrs. Khanna,
Yes to everything except no to check number 210197, check 210254, check 210284, check 209968, check
wait, what was the
21968.
last three numbers on that last check? 968.
And finally, check 210137. Yes to everything else.
Mrs. Jolly,
So I am yes to everything except check number 209968.
wait,
210,
wait, that was 209968, okay,
210,
210,
137,
137,
210, 184,
184,
210, 254,
254,
and 210, 197.
197. Ms. Akiri,
Yeah, it's yes to everything except no to 210254, 210184, 210197, 209968, 210137.
Dr. Forga,
Yes to all except check number 210197, check number 210254, check number 210184, check number 209968, and check number 210137.
Mr. Hyman,
Yes.
Ms. Stanley,
Yes.
Ms. Huffnagel,
Yes.
Ms. Bradford,
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so just give me a little moment to tally up the checks. I have 201197. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that does not pass. 210197. I have 210254. There is 1, 2, 3, and 4. That does not pass. 210184. There is 1, 2, 3, 4. That does not pass. 209968. That's 2, 3, and 4. That does not pass. 210137. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are the 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the 5 checks that do not pass. Everything else does.
Okay, at this time, we're going to have comments from the public on any topic. During this portion of the meeting, district residents and staff are invited to address the Board of Education on any item. The board requests that individuals state their name, town of residence, or school of attendance for the record. All comments should be directed to the board president, and depending on the nature and complexity of the question, it may or may not be answered during the meeting by the administration. If so, the response would occur after this public portion of the meeting has concluded. Although the board may not respond to all items raised during the public forum, all public comments will be considered. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Specifically, comments regarding personnel matters are discouraged and cannot be responded to by the board. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded by the laws of New Jersey. The board bears no responsibility, nor will it be liable for any comments made by the members of the public. Please note that if any member of the public becomes disruptive during the meeting, the board president may terminate the participant's statement. Continued disruptions may result in removal from or adjournment of the meeting. We will have our public comments first, then our Zoom comments. Each speaker's statement will be limited to 3 minutes in duration. Is there anyone from the public?
Good evening, and Debbie Terrell again, Berkeley Heights. First of all, I have to say that your meeting was a lot smoother tonight, which is really encouraging, so congratulations. For the past 7 years, I've been involved in the PTO and I've remained relatively neutral. Now my duties are coming to a close as the BHPTO president, and so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my truth here. I'd like to address that the Berkeley Heights teachers and staff's morale is at an all-time low. If you don't believe me, read the 2 letters to the editor and tap into, both written by well-respected educators in our town. It's shameful that you've allowed our educators to reach their breaking points. These are educators that are teaching our children. So please consider the decisions and things that you do. It does impact them also. I'd also like to commend a counselor that came up here last time, making an outstanding statement about the 5 HIB cases that were overturned. The cases were likely biased in nature and should never have been overturned. And then tonight, there were 3 additional HIB cases that almost got overturned. What are you doing? You know, with the exception of Mr. Hyman abstaining because the case is not involving GL students, I don't understand the whole abstain thing. And to my understanding, when you're abstaining, unless you have a direct conflict of interest, you should be explaining why you're abstaining, because you're putting at risk the fact that these cases could be overturned by doing that. So you really need to be thinking about what you're doing and the risk that you are putting this town in when you do that. We could get sued. Think about the decisions you're making. And let me also remind everybody that you are not the subject matter experts. And the thought of overturning HIB cases puts this town in great jeopardy. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Marcy Helmstetter, president of the Berkeley Heights Education Association. And I've been a teacher at Governor Livingston for over 20 years. Like me, many of the BHE members have invested our lives in the future of the children of the Berkeley Heights School District. I believe it's time for me to speak up on behalf of all of us, the work we do, and the concerns many BHEA members have about the instability we've faced in the running of our school district. Those who have dedicated themselves to education, no matter their role, have the opportunity to make the world a better place. The work we do matters greatly. It is some of the most important work there is. For the past 3 years as president of the BHEA, I've faced many challenges. There's a complexity to dealing with the myriad of personalities and diverse opinions and being able to compromise and find solutions. But it's not only possible, it's absolutely necessary in order to move forward. In my opinion, some of the marks of a true leader are the ability to admit that you do not have all the answers. In reality, none of us do. To have a willingness to admit when you're wrong, because all of us are at times. To quote John F. Kennedy, leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. To come to the table with a focus on the solutions and not a preoccupation with the problems. to keep a focus on the larger goals and not allow oneself to be quagmired by the minutia that inevitably comes with achieving them. This district has been here before most of us were and will most likely continue long after we're gone from these roles. But you have the opportunity to promote excellence, to show leadership within the community, and to accomplish something great now. Do not squander it on petty disagreements and infighting. Please realize that the public face you show the community is how the district as a whole is judged. While I know you've been contacted by individual teachers regarding their concerns, I have not been publicly vocal till now. I see my role as one where I should remain neutral regarding the politics and continue to work within the system for the benefit of students and staff. But you may not realize the impact that you have on the district as a whole. The results of constant conflict and dissent at the top trickles down. It crushes our morale. It keeps us from getting necessary work done in the running of the district, and it keeps us from being able to do what we are experts at doing, what we're all here for, educating children. The BHEA will continue to advocate for good faith, goodwill, and honest policymaking by the elected members of the Berkeley Heights Board of Education. The board as a whole should advocate for thoughtful and meaningful policy that supports district growth, positive morale among staff members, and positive and conducive environment for learning and instruction, and the outcomes this educational community deserves. There are very good and caring people at all levels on the board, in our administration, in our classrooms, and in many other services to our districts. And it's time for you to give those people a voice and set a new course for our district. It is time to move past old grievances. And it is time to come together in the spirit of cooperation, collaboration, and move forward with the sole intention of providing meaningful, positive outcomes.
Thank you.
Speaking as a resident, so on the I where the it was did not pass for the library liaison, is that a requirement for the library board to have someone from the school district or not? Because I know it's a whole committee that meets, and I thought that there had to be a representative from the school district on that board. I might be wrong. I often am.
Specifically, my understanding of the position is that somebody from the school district has participated as part of that board. It has been Diane Azalone for the past 5 years. That person is part of a voting member and part of that committee, yes. That's my understanding as well.
So quick follow-up then. So who's going to take that role if that I did not pass? Who's going to take that role?
We're going to have to figure that part out next.
Okay. That
Yeah.
could be I mean, I know there's a lot of connection in the community with the library through the township and the library board and the school. So I think that needs to be worked on. Thank you.
Mr. Marks, is there anyone online? Do you want me to hit that button? Okay. Mr. Beguez, you have a comment. Mhm. Mr. Beguez, do you have a comment? Mr. Marks, I can't unmute him. Mr. Beguez, you have a comment?
Yes. So I'm not clear. So I'm not really clear on the instability in the district has been the product of years. It didn't occur in the last 6 months. And there was a lot of investment and a lot of noise as to who should be the board president for the first month and a half of this board. and that individual, ended up not serving. So the instability has been around for a while. And I think in the last 5 months, there's been a lot of corrective actions in terms of what the community has asked for, in terms of both transparency, um, minutes being posted, remote access. I know that the transportation decision wasn't necessarily popular, but I think it's fair and it's something that we can sort of build on. It's certainly a much more informed policy than it was. I will say that like this attorney way better, a lot fairer. So I think there have been a lot of improvements over the last 5 months, and I do feel like as we're getting closer to election time, um, that the narrative is all about crisis mode. Not getting a president was a crisis. The transportation issue was a crisis, and all of these problems are sort of getting worked through and resolved. And I have not agreed with everything that this board has done. I wasn't happy with the expenditure on the athletic trainer, the increase on security. There's a lot of things that I just didn't agree with, but I think the decision making was a lot better. And I think Mr. Nixon and the board, despite the conflict, has been a lot more professional in its presentation to the public and in its treatment of the public. It's a testament to this board that people are so willing and freely speaking to the board about their concerns, whereas for the last 3 years, that has not been the case in terms of our educators. The second thing I'm a little worried about is this public discussion of HIB. As a member of the public, I have no idea whether a HIB should be overturned or supported. And I'm getting this weird feeling that we're rooting for HIBs to be approved without really knowing the evidence about it. From what I heard last meeting, one paragraph was given to the board. It's not, for example, just kind of using something analogous to the court, a court of law. A judge isn't going to reach out to a prosecutor to say, hey, give me more information so I could support this HIB. So I'm going to kind of restate my concerns from last meeting that we kind of not bring this into sort of a political football, and we kind of look at the overall process and what can be improved in terms of how these are looked at, so that everybody in the community has a bit more confidence. Again, I have no idea whether these HIBs should have been approved or not approved. I have to believe that there were good reasons why they weren't. And maybe that's it. And there were good reasons why people voted for them. I'm sure there were good reasons on both sides of that vote. But to have kids' cases, like the other side of this, we're talking about kids here that are being investigated, and we're kind of having these discussions publicly, and that kind of concerns me. That's all. Thank you so much, and great job tonight, all of you.
I see no other comments from the public. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, there is one. Mr. Marks? Ms. Grossman?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. Louisa Grossman, 194 Princeton Avenue. I have a question regarding the, back to the presentation that was made at the beginning, about the math, the way we teach math in our district. And, one of the, and there was that back and forth between 75% or 35% or whatever percent direct instruction versus collaborative instruction. And Ms. Securi had mentioned something about other districts doing it successfully at 75% direct instruction. And the consultants or the people presenting had mentioned that they had that they were also looking at other districts to sort of benchmark where we were going to fall, the direction we were going to head in. So I was just wondering, have we looked at all the districts that we like to compare ourselves to, and are they using direct instruction for their math curriculum closer to the 75 or the 65, or is it more 35 for direct instruction and the rest collaborative? But I'm just curious where, where they are, because Ms. Akira had brought that up, that her understanding was that, there were some that were closer to 75. So is that something that we can look at and maybe use that as use them as a benchmark? Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other hands raised at this time. Mr. Nixon, is there anything you'd like to address?
Not in particular, no, but in regard to the last part from Mrs. Grossman, we can certainly look into some of those things.
And the library. Yep. Okay, thank you. We'll close our public portion in person and on Zoom. Looks like there's no new business. We will move to adjournment. Motion to adjourn. Dr. Forger moves to adjourn. Second.
I'll second that.
Mrs. Jolly, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you.